Hello from the Center for Livable Cities in Singapore, and a warm welcome to the fourth episode in our CLC webinar series, Cities Adapting to a Disrupted World. I'm your host, Dinesh Naidu. Over 1,000 people from 50 countries registered for this webinar, so good morning to our friends in Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. Good afternoon to our neighbors here in Asia, and good evening to viewers across the Pacific. A special shout out always to our audiences in the Americas. Thank you for joining us in the middle of the night. Our distinguished speaker today is Mr. Koh Keng Hua, and he will be speaking on our topic, Technology in Times of Crisis, How can AI and IoT help cities? But first, some housekeeping. To listen to the simultaneous interpretation of this webinar in Mandarin, please go to the controls toolbar on Zoom and click on Interpretation and then select Chinese. All audience cameras and microphones are disabled throughout this webinar. Following Mr. Koh's presentation, I'll moderate a dialogue and audience Q&A with him. Some of you have already submitted questions to Mr. Koh when you registered for this webinar, but you can still pose new questions by clicking on the Q&A tab. For those who'd like a copy, Mr. Koh's slides can be downloaded from our CLC website within the next few days. I'm very glad now to welcome and introduce today's speaker, Mr. Koh Keng Hua. Mr. Koh has a wealth of leadership experience in technology as well as urban development in both the private and public sectors in Singapore and in China. Mr. Koh is chairman of Envision Digital International Private Limited and senior advisor to Envision Digital Group. He is also a director of public listed Hobby Land Limited and Ames APAC REIT Management Limited, and senior advisor to several companies, including the Boston Consulting Group International. Mr. Koh's prior leadership roles in the Singapore public sector include as Managing Director of the Economic Development Board, CEO of the JTC Corporation, as well as CEO of the National Computer Board. For his contributions, he was awarded the Public Administration Gold Medal by the Singapore government in 2000. In the private sector, he has been CEO of Singbridge International, CEO of Sustainable Development and Living Business Division of Keppel Corporation, chairman of the then NASDAQ-listed Pacific Internet, and senior roles in the Sino-Singapore Guangzhou Knowledge City and Sino-Singapore Tianjin Eco-City projects. Now, without further ado, let's hear from the man himself, Mr. Koh Keng Hua. The mic is yours.
Hi, everybody. Good day or good evening to all of you joining us in this webinar. Thank you very much for dialing in and trust all of you are keeping well. What I'll do today is to give you a view of what the next generation smart city would look like and the role of AIoT technologies in the implementation and to bring in the context of the COVID. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic has caused unprecedented damage to lives and economy all the world over. But looking forward, what can be worse than the COVID-19? Climate change. Scientists say that if we cannot limit the temperature rise to 1.5 degrees by this century, the worsening cause of climate change could become irreversible. Unlike the pandemic, it will be tamed, but it will take quite some time. But this is possible irreversible cause on the climate change. So a key focus for cities should then be on decarbonization, cut CO2 emissions, aim for net zero. Not just for the good of the world, but for the good of the citizens of the cities. We believe that digitalization can accelerate decarbonization by reducing energy demand by generating more energy from renewables. During this COVID, millions, perhaps billions of people have to suddenly embrace a digital world, to live, to work, to play, to learn, to shop, to meet, to socialize digitally and most survive and many thrive. So cities should actually seize on this strong momentum to accelerate digital transformation and decarbonization. Now, AIoT will be a key technology enabler of the smart cities and the decarbonization and digitalization. Allow me to have a quick intro of my company because this is an area that we are really our core business. Envision Digital Group, 5 global businesses, one singular vision, net zero, all driven by IoT. Our business and our technology centers of excellence span across the group. I'll go through very quickly. Envision Digital, this is a digital arm of Envision, global headquarters in Singapore. We own the world's largest AIoT platform for the energy management business. 120 gigawatts of energy assets connected to 60 million sensors and smart devices. In Singapore, we are also building, fast ramping up our AIoT R&D center. Now, Envision Energy headquarters in Shanghai. We are number 2 in China on wind turbines. Envision AESC headquarters in Yokohama. We are the leader in the AOT-defined batteries. We acquired this from Nissan Motors last year. We have a venture arm in Silicon Valley, and we own a racing car team, E1, not F1. The cars are all electric vehicles. We are trying to race against climate change. Now, we work with many customers worldwide, hundreds and hundreds of them. And in Singapore, we have Keppel Corporation. These are all major projects with Housing Development Board, with our port, and with GovTech, the Government Technology Agency under the Prime Minister's office. We have to walk our talk. Envision targets net zero by 2025. This is an ambitious target in 5 years' time. Next, I'd like to share with you our view of the next generation smart city. We believe that it's going to be defined by 5 main characteristics. 1, there should be a city operating system. Our little mobile phone has Android as an operating system. Our laptop has Windows as an operating system, let alone a city, which is going to be much more complex. We need an operating system for the city in order to orchestrate, to connect the dots and the silos of automation. Number 2, the smart city will be able to think, obviously, right? Otherwise cannot be smart, but also feel. In a smart city, there will be like a central nervous system, Internet of Things network, connecting ubiquitous sensors everywhere, feeling how the city is doing, how metabolic it is. And with all this data, we need a big brain to process, create insights. And this is going to be augmented by AI because it's very complex. Number 3, we see the proliferation of what we call machine-to-machine networks. Machines talking to each other, working together, coordinating with each other. Robots in a team, working together. I'll share with you some other examples. And this will not only reduce manpower requirements, but also is safer without too much of the people intervention. Number 4, the smart city will be data-driven. The IoT will collect a lot of data for the brain using AI to process. And data is going to be the new goal of enterprises and cities. And this data is going to bring about the integration of what we call IT and OT, information technology data and operations technology data. Very quickly, I go to the website and do an e-commerce key in my address and order X units of widgets. That is IT. But when all this goes to the automated warehouse, it transforms into instructions for robots going around picking it up, looking at the status and etc. etc. That's OT. And we're seeing a convergence of this in a city of tomorrow. And finally, cities have their master plan. Singapore has a master plan. Every 10 years, new one, every 5 years review. And increasingly, cities will need, because of the pervasive digitalization of the city, a layer of master plan, the digital layer called the digital master plan, that will not only synergize but also integrate with the physical master plan so that the alignment will create the end results that we want very effectively. So these are some of the, I will say, 5 characteristics, and I'll move on to share with you this operating system for smart city. Just very briefly, it is this part here. It is software. 3 layers for simplification. The IoT connectivity. This is a very complex software that connects millions of and hundreds of millions or even more of sensors, devices, and manage them, get the data up here. And the digital layer, the digital network, is the one that actually makes sense out of all this massive data. There are many, many tools, from the time series analysis of the database to we have digital twins so that we can actually test some of the hypotheses. A digital twin is the digital version of, let's say, the city, or of the city's electricity network and so on. And this layer is the one that would use data to build applications. For example, when smart meters come to our home, how to get water bill and electricity bill lower. There's an application for the citizens to use, but some of this will be directions, instructions to machines for them to start working. Energy is crucial in every city. We believe that the energy landscape will undergo major transition in the coming years. When I started my career in computers, the world was dominated by mainframe computers, very big, very centralized. Just like today's power station, gigawatts capacity. Now, we're seeing this transition from centralized to decentralized, from huge power plants to many, many, many decentralized, what we call DER, distributed energy resources. We are seeing a transition from mainly fossil energy to renewables. So here, for example, in this world, an electric vehicle, your car. This car is actually a mobile power station, a mobile storage, a mobile user, and potentially a mobile electricity trader. My house here can also be a generator if I have my rooftop solar. I have battery I can store, keep it when the price is high, I sell to the grid, I trade. So this scenario, this ecosystem will require a new grid that is largely going to be based on AIoT platform in the cloud to manage this very complex, this fragmented ecosystem, to optimize, to forecast supply demand, to balance supply demand, to use pricing and trading to further create efficiency. But AIoT are not just used for energy, but far beyond. In fact, every industry sector can benefit from AIoT. I take this public information from GovTech. Government Technology Agency of Singapore. They have deployed AIoT kind of platform called Dicada. It is meant for use by different agencies connected to many sensors and devices and creating applications and good data analytics and machine learning analysis and so on for the different government agencies. In so doing, agencies can focus on designing their solutions that really meet the pain points of their users and don't have to worry about the underlying AIoT infrastructure. Now, in AIoT, we really want to get a lot of value out of it. It is not how much data we collect, but how much value we create. Descriptive data tell us what is happening. We want to know why it happened. Better still, you tell me that it will happen in 2 weeks' time so that I got time to react, but not good enough. If only you can tell me what is the 3 courses of action, what is the best recommended one, that will be very useful and very valuable. For example, this is a screenshot from a tool to manage solar farms. Solar farms are utility scale solar energy farms with a lot of solar panels, right? So what this says is that this particular solar farm is designed to generate 1.11, generate 1.37 gigawatt hour of energy, the design max. But today, this particular moment in time when this was turned on or look at, it's only generating 1.11. And out of this 1.11, why is a loss? Okay, 185 are recoverable loss if we take corrective actions. 66 are not economically viable to recover. So the achievable production should be 1.3, but they're only clocking 1.11. System is smart enough, AIoT, to look at all the causes of recoverable loss. So take this long bar here. The green one is recoverable production. The purple one is actual loss experienced right now. This is called soiling, this particular cause. There are many causes. Snow, of course not here, and so on and so forth. But soiling is when the panel becomes dirty, mud, soil, sand, bird droppings. So the solar panel don't work as well. So we are able to do this kind of diagnostic. Why it happened, but not good enough. What to do? Here you are. Okay, very smart. You say, look, your particular problem, they recommend a full wash of the panels that they have detected using IoT, that it is not working efficiently. If you don't wash every week, you are losing 40K worth, 40K yen. I think this is a demo to the Japanese customer. 40K yen every week from lost production. If you send your washing team there, it costs you 15K and the payback is only 1 week. Operators say, no brainer, click, do, go and recover, you know, and the rest will follow on, right? So there are many other interesting areas. The other thing is that why you want to go and wash if it rains this afternoon or tomorrow morning? Wait for the rain to wash for you. So a future version of ours will have the weather and rain forecast to even make the recommendation better. AIoT is used in predictive maintenance. As I say, don't tell me it happened and this is why it happened, but if you can tell me ahead of time, better still. Okay, in our wind turbines to generate wind energy, we put a microphone, you know, actually it's quite low cost, fairly normal microphone as a sensor at the tower gate, so that this microphone can listen. Let's try my luck, see whether it works. Okay, I can't listen. Okay, you listen to the wind when it hits the blades and the blade turn, you see the howling of the wind. This is the sound that is captured. We do all kinds of analytics using machine learning, using all kinds of algorithm. And to cut a long story short, we say that, look, this particular blade has this surface wear and tear now. And if you don't get this fixed, after X months, you may actually have a blade fracture. It's no joke, it's very expensive to get it fixed, you know, especially offshore. So this is, and it's very easy to fix this kind of surface problem. So an example of predictive maintenance, not just for wind turbine, you know, it can be many things, for the lifts, for the pumps, for the chillers in buildings or in factories. So talking about buildings, the use of AIoT in building. Why is this a big deal? In Singapore, buildings consume about half the country's electricity consumption. And of these buildings, the non-residential one like office, up to 70% of the electricity bill of that building is used for cooling and ventilation. This thing we call HVAC, heating, ventilation, air condition. In a relatively small project or a small building where we deployed this, very interesting. We found that there are more than 1 dozen subsystems. For example, the chiller system, the valves, the cooling tower, the chiller. There are 14, 15 of them, different brands. And there are 1,200 devices and equipment, you know. Each valve is connected. Now, our solution, IoT solution, connects all these 1,002 devices and all the dozen of subsystems, cut across and connects the data silos, all the data of everything. So we optimize, we recommend. And it's machine to machine. You don't need to tell operator, please set temperature minus, reduce by 2 centigrade for this particular chiller. No, the machine talk to the machine to do it. And this building was actually Green Mark Platinum, very, very efficient already, and we are able to get a double-digit reduction in energy consumption. I don't want to spend too much time, but in the area of facility management, using fault detection, diagnostics, predictive maintenance, and so on, manpower, which is very, very important in Singapore, we're short of manpower, can cut the kind of manpower needed for facility management, rather than alerts blinking everywhere, but really tell you what action to take. Right, to conclude, the current COVID pandemic is too costly to let it go to waste. COVID presents us with extraordinary opportunities to accelerate decarbonization and digitalization, especially in the context of building livable cities and sustainable cities. And by so doing, cities can take a path towards net zero. And also, through decarbonization and digitalization plus other design, cities are prepared to better deal with the next pandemic, which will surely come. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. I'll be very happy to discuss further with you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Koh. I think you framed the seriousness of the climate crisis very clearly when you asked us to imagine what can be worse than the COVID-19 pandemic. On that note, let's take a look now at the results of the poll we gave our audience in the waiting room just before this webinar. Our poll question was, how significant do you think AI and IoT is likely to be in mitigating a climate crisis? And we can see that our audience today is fairly optimistic that AI and IoT can have a very significant impact on this problem. So that brings me to my question for you, Mr. Koh. How much do you think that these technologies can help us to address the climate crisis?
Well, it can do so very significantly. How do we decarbonize? One is we really have to cut down the energy use. Right, to cut down the energy use by having AIoT to optimize the usage of energy. I give the example of a building, for example. Energy can be reduced by double-digit numbers, 10%, 20%, even more, depending on how inefficient they are in the first place. But more than that, we are seeing very complex optimization that's made possible by AIoT. Take, for example, a project that involves what we call AGVs, automatic guided vehicles, to do their task. But these AGVs are going to be electrified, meaning that they're going to use batteries. Now, and because they're heavy duty, they take a lot of time to charge. Now, how can we optimize the charging downtime? At the same time, the operations are not badly affected by the downtime. Again, through this kind of optimization, we will be able to actually make better use of the energy. And as the energy ecosystem evolves towards the more decentralized, more distributed, then there are many, many participants in there. And there's a lot of opportunity for networks, special purpose networks, or even at a global basis in that ecosystem in a city to optimize. To use a term that maybe is made famous by the COVID, flatten the curve. Flatten the curve, not fatten the curve, flatten. So we know the energy is very peakish, right? And energy is very peakish. So how do we be able to shape the peak? And more importantly, which comes to the second point, we'll talk about it later, which is in the area of using of renewable energy. First part is, you see, to cut down energy use, but whatever you need to use, try to go for as high, if not 100% from renewable. But you know what's the problem? The dominant renewable energy, like solar, like wind, are intermittent. What happens if there's no wind and there's no sun, right? You cannot impose a COVID shutdown, right? What happens if, wow, very sunny and very strong wind, a lot of energy created. If not used, it can be perishable, you know. So how can we, and because of this, many countries have a limit on how much renewable energy they can allow in order not to have grid instability. Now, one possible solution, as the world is going towards electric vehicles, by the way, for our overseas audience, Singapore has announced this policy that in 10 years' time, we cannot buy an internal combustion engine car in the market. We will stop selling, right? So imagine if you have 1 million vehicles on the road that is running on batteries. And today, even today's technology, electric vehicle can actually be driven from here to Kuala Lumpur, 300 kilometers away without recharging, you know. And you know, right, in Singapore, you drive 45 minutes, you'll hit the coast. So in other words, these batteries in the electric vehicles represent a very, very valuable resource, which is energy storage, which might be able to help to break the intermittency of renewable energy. And in Singapore, we have a different problem, right? We got not enough land for everything, so not enough land to put our solar panel. So even we put everything on the rooftop, there's that much we can produce, right? And we can't win because So back to this, what cities are doing are trying to see, okay, how can we leverage, or countries leverage on this storage that is in electric vehicles as a kind of buffer, you know. So we have a major project in Netherlands, ourselves, Nissan, and the TenneT, which is the equivalent of Singapore Power, trying to not just have a vehicle to, no, what we call grid to vehicle when you charge your electric vehicle, but also want to have vehicle to grid, so that it's two-way, bi-directional, and one day we can use a price mechanism. For example, if there's a surplus of energy because of good wind and good sun, okay, we say, yeah, please charge your car and at the X% discount, you know. When there's shortage, please sell back to the grid, and there's a price premium and so on. So yes, and therefore, if we do this, we are able to increase the percentage of renewable energy in any economy, in any city, in any country. So, well, it's one of our pet subjects. I can go talk a lot, but just to summarize, you can see that it tackled the problem of greenhouse emission from efficiency in usage. That means you use less energy, and whatever we still need to use more renewable generation.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's a topic of interest to me too, so I enjoyed it. But we do need to take some questions from the audience as well. And I thought that was a very good exposition of the sort of technical side of it. This next question comes from our audience member, Rex Chan. And he is asking more in terms of the governance, right, and the processes. So he says, how can governments work together with the private sector to leverage and unleash the full potential and synergy of AI and IoT when doing urban planning and development? Mr. Koh?
Well, in the Singapore context, we have been ranked consistently high in terms of smart city implementation. And this is because of a very, very sustained effort over the decades to develop the technology, put money in R&D, to promote the use, in fact, there are so many schemes to help companies. So I think we are starting from a very a good situation. So I think in the case of smart city and the governance, I think I would like to see as a master plan. I mean, our authority, URA, does a very, very good job. Not only come up with the master plan with lots of consultation, but we have traveling exhibition, you know, to go through the whole country to show people and to get feedback and so on and so forth. I think one area will be that in addition to the urban master plan, if we can also have a digital master plan side by side, which mutually support each other, that will be one helpful way to do it. The other thing, of course, is that with all this that is happening, there are big challenges. And how do we, government, work with the private sector to find solutions? Take, for example, right, still back to electric vehicles. Right? In 10 years' time, we cannot buy, we got to buy electric vehicles. So we know that in electric vehicles, the current power grid will not be able to support the charging at the office, at the home, you know. Now, how one European country say they got to spend 50 billion euros, you know, to upgrade the infrastructure, and that is not considering the last mile, you know. So are there better ways to address this issue? You know, we talk about vehicle to grid, grid to vehicle, and the next thing we talk about is actually V to X, vehicle to everything. You don't just charge back to the grid, you can charge back to many, many things. So set the framework, set some of the issues, and then invite, support solutions. Some could be at the overall level, some could be at the specific problem level. And I think the third area, maybe in the area of regulation, you know, many of these things would require regulatory changes. And this is where our government has actually done a pretty good job by creating what is called sandboxes, right? So we got a sandbox for say the finance sector, we got a sandbox for other domains to try out, whereby the regulations could be modified and so on. So as we move forward to come to all these other areas, especially look at the kind of energy transition that's beginning to take place in some other places, then I think more of this policy innovation in sync with technology and the end objective would be very, very useful. And one last thing I'd like to also add that, again, this we have been doing very well, which is in the area of manpower, in the area of training and so on. For this to be widely deployed, we need, I would say, three categories of people that we have to pay more attention to work with industry, not need to train, but actually on the job training. One of it is, of course, what we call the deep technology, the people who are very good in machine learning, people can code AI programs and so on, the deep tech people. And the second category is really people who knows both the technology, the AIoT, and the subject matter and the domain. For example, people know the technology very well, but also know port operations very well, also know public transport very well, or also know building management very well. So this is a part that where the technology intersect the business, and we need competence in both, also in OT and IT, as I mentioned. So this and the third area is really to address management and the technical management, because a lot of this deployment require what we call digital transformation. It requires business process innovation. It requires opportunity to also transform the business. So how to also, and this kind of change, usually they are all kind of inertial and so on. So how to work with management, create awareness and the middle management to bring about this change, to bring about this kind of business technology transformation.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Koh. I think we have run out of time, but just remains for me to say, I think you have really pointed out a lot of the technologies where AI and IoT can be enablers to fight climate change. You have shared so many concrete examples as well as insights on how we can take this further through things like digital master plans, regulatory sandboxes, and so on. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you, Dinesh, and thank you everyone for your patience. I'd like to sincerely apologize for the technical hitch. As they say, Murphy's Law, at the wrong time. Yeah, but I work with Dinesh to have the PowerPoints available for anyone who would like to have a set.
Yes, they will be available on our website within a few days, we hope. All right. So our and of course, audience members can look out for that in our social media as well. Okay, our next webinar will be in 2 weeks at the same time, but on a Friday, the 17th of July. It is titled Emerging Stronger, Healthy and Sustainable Infrastructure. Ms. Indrani Raja, Minister in the Singapore Prime Minister's Office and Second Minister for Finance and Education, will open the discussion with a keynote on how cities can emerge stronger from this pandemic by investing in sustainable infrastructure to enhance a city's health. This will be followed by a moderated dialogue with our panelists, Pang Yi Yen, CEO of Sabana Jurong Capital, and Mr. Loh Ah Tuan, the former Deputy CEO and Director General at Singapore's National Environmental Agency. Mr. Seth Tan, the Executive Director of Infrastructure Asia, our partner, will be our guest moderator. Please register to attend using the QR code or the link. Well, we're almost at the end of our webinar. This webinar has been live streamed on CLC's Facebook page, and we'll upload a recording of it on our CLC YouTube channel within the next hour, where you can find over 500 other videos, including several related to technology. Finally, thank you to you, our audience, for your participation. We hope you find these webinars useful. Before you leave, please use the QR code or link to fill in our feedback form. Do tell us what works and how we can do better. This is the end of today's webinar, but we will be leaving this webinar open for another 10 minutes for you to leave feedback. We are also enabling the chat box function at this time, so you can exchange comments with each other here. Until our next webinar on the 17th of July, goodbye and stay healthy.